Good afternoon, and let me thank, first of all, inviting us to share the thoughts. And it is about regional disparity challenges of post-war development in Sri Lanka. And this has been the subject which has been discussed in many different forums. But I'm glad that given the opportunity by these organizers for us to come and share the experience that we are really experiencing in Sri Lanka. Let's look at a simple profile of Sri Lanka just to get an idea what kind of a country are we looking at. It's such a small, tiny island nation. The size of the Sri Lanka is about 65,000 square kilometers. The population is about 21 million, out of which 4 million are living outside Sri Lanka. And we have three major ethnic groups, Sinhalese, Moors, Indian Tamils, Sri Lankan Tamils, and very a small percentage of Euro-Asians and European descendants. And the population growth is less than 1%. And you all could see that this, the basic profile of Sri Lanka is given in this slide. And we have achieved some stability with great difficulties over a period of 50 years. I recall the first youth uprising in 1971. Where there are about 30 to 40,000 young men and women who sacrificed their life. And then, of course, we had 26-year war. I wouldn't call it a civil war or ethnic conflict. It is not about the two between two communities. It is kind of a war that any war could have the similar characteristics. And we had another youth uprising that was 1987 to 1990. I was an undergraduate studying my undergraduate degree, and the university was closed for 3 years. And our constitution reconstituted. The 1972 constitution abolished, and new constitution was drafted in 1978, and which has been amended 18th time. And currently we have the 18th amendment to the Constitution of Sri Lanka. Now, having said that, what exactly are we looking at in this particular study? This paper examines some of the developmental disparities in post-civil war in Sri Lanka after year 2009. Now, the disparity aspects which I looked at in this paper, I looked at through a set of achievement indicators. The poverty distribution, human resource development indicators, PQLI related measurements, household conditions, and the variety of household facility use, income and wealth, and other relative indicators. Because you see, the disparity has more often captured just by looking at the distribution of income and wealth. In this paper, I looked at a variety of the aspects that capture all possible different aspects of disparities. Now, what we have found in this study, we have found Sri Lanka's achievement in certain areas of human development when compared to the other developing countries are noteworthy. However, the data presented in this paper clearly establish that there are considerable disparities in socio-economic development in relation to major sectors, that is urban, rural and estate, or among the regions at the provincial level. Now, let me take you back to this smaller map. In Sri Lanka, with the 13th amendment, we created 9 administrative divisions known as provincial councils. So I looked at the local council level as well as the sectoral level. Now, in many countries, the two sectors, the urban and rural, but we have a colonial heritage, that is the plantation sector. We call it a state sector. It has been segmented, plantation being isolated in the central part of the country, and largely the plantation workers are confined to the plantation itself. Therefore, most of the classification got this unusual classification, the urban, rural and the state. I am looking at these two categories in my analysis, so as to see that how this disparity distributed. Now, take poverty by sector, urban, rural and state. Now, the urban poverty is somewhat lower than that of the rural poverty, but the state sector poverty is somewhat significant. It is more than that of the national average, 7.6. This has been debated. Maybe this is partly because of the colonial heritage. Earlier, the poverty is recognized as a rural phenomenon. Now, of course, the poverty in Sri Lanka is more of a state phenomenon. And let me take another simple example. This may be much better. Now, the Gini coefficient, this is an estimation done in relation to the provisions, the provincial councils. The Eastern Province, which was affected by the 26-year war, recorded quite lower value, whereas the Uva province, that is also recognized with the poorest small administrative units in the country. And let's move on to another possible indicator, the per capita income distribution by province level. The Western Province, which generates more than half of the GDP, and which recorded the highest per capita income. Again, the previous indicator reflective of the same. The Eastern and Uva provinces also recorded the lower per capita income, both mean and median. And percentage share of income received by the poorest to the richest household by a sector gain, urban, rural and state, you could see that the state sector is being affected quite badly. And if you look at the another indicator of disparity, that is literacy, aspects of human development, again the no schooling is reported at the highest possible rate at the state sector. And I also looked at the household conditions, where the nature of the household unit, all that, and also I looked at the availability of electricity, water supply and the sanitation of the various household sectors in my analysis, and also looked at the availability of household equipment or the percentage of household. It's another indicator that I looked at in this paper. And the provincial GDP, as I said earlier, though it is little lower in 2010, the Western Province is being reported as the economic center in the country, and the northern, eastern, you would see that some disparity is there in terms of their contribution. Now, Which once again, I would like to re-emphasize that there are disparities, though we have achieved certain positive signs in the disparity of the distribution. However, the one would ask what we have found in the analysis that I have done in this paper. Let me take back to the one of the previous slides. The data presented in this paper clearly established that there are considerable disparities in socio-economic development in relation to major sectors. Now, what would be the government effort in reducing the disparity? Since 2005, the government has given priority in its development agenda to the development of economic infrastructure at the provincial level, to attract new investments, improving accessibility to market, creating new employment opportunities, and also to poverty eradication. Now, let me briefly look at what Sri Lanka has been doing. There are quite a few activities has been taken place over the years, particularly after 2005, and in particular 2009. One of them is reassurance of political stability. And we had the presidential election in 2010, and we also had the general election, and we also had the provincial and local election, a series of elections to reassure whether the political mandate, even after the war ends, is there with the ruling party. And secondly, what we have done was, we initiated multi-focused, multi-objective development programs. And thirdly, the program for strengthening local agriculture sector in order to assure food security. You know, until recently, Sri Lanka was not self-sufficient in food. Now, we are self-sufficient in food. Of course, still we import certain food varieties, certain grains. We don't have Mysore dal. We import Mysore dal from India and Australia, and some fruits that are to use in tourism industry. And we also have recognized the growth center focus development programs. That was in 2010. The political mandate was given on the basis of the economic development program proposed by the current the government. That is initially called 5 growth hubs. We have recognized for the first time in the history that the Sri Lanka to be move forward should recognize the possible growth hubs, the education, the commerce, the ports, the airports, the tourism. And the entire development program is focused on improving these hubs. And then we also initiated major state-sponsored development initiatives in line with the Keynesian push path. That's just the policy which was adopted in 1930s when the global economy was in recession. And interestingly, there was a series of programs being implemented to accelerate the development and to make Sri Lanka emerging economy in our own region. The Divinaguma, Gamanaguma, Puranaguma regional growth centers, and also strategic initiatives. Now, let's look at briefly what is this Divinaguma. That is self-reliant household economic units, servicing million home economics to empower backyard economic activities, that is agriculture, fisheries and livestock, small family enterprise, and provisions of seeds and planting materials, development of greenhouses, seed farms, and encouraging to plant and cultivate at least 3 coconut plants or other trees of commercial values in each home gardens, development of coffee cottage industries, handicraft, and various other infant industries. And this is one of the prime examples of Divinaguma million household economic units. Likewise, Divinaguma million household economic units, we were trying to develop small entrepreneurship, and Gamanaguma, that is provisions of rural infrastructure to have access to electricity, water, sanitation, communication, roads and mine irrigation. And this is exactly the objective of the Gamanaguma, to enhance the village economy, access to road, access to electricity, access to safe drinking water, sanitation, access to small irrigation, quality health and education, and livelihood development. And in Gamanaguma program, there were large number of initiatives has been taken place, and these are some of the examples. And this is Puranaguma, empowering local authorities, 2 initiatives to finance from ADB credit facility, and where we initiated houses, a canal system, children's park, community and health centers, particularly in the north and east, and the balanced regional economic development initiatives, 300,000 kilometer intra-provincial road rehabilitation programs, 30,000 minor tanks and irrigation rehabilitation programs, all that came under that. And regional growth initiatives. Now, there were large number of regional growth initiatives being taken place as a result of this initiative. Ruun Udane, Utturu Udane, Naganehara Udane. Likewise, you could see the concentration was given on a particular region. This is Kandurata Udane, Pubudubu Vellassa, and in relation to tourism economy. And we also looked at the tourism zones, new markets, market forces. And finally, I reach a few conclusions in my paper. Regional disparities in the economic development is a critical development issues in Sri Lanka. Lessons from developed nations show that the access to lies not only on equitable economic growth, but also in instituting policies that make living standard of people more uniform across the space, improvement in the basic infrastructure facilities like power, irrigation, transport and telecommunication in the backward provisions, regions, sectors are important. Availability of an assured power supply, developed transport system and modern telecommunication facilities are important factors to attract private investment to these states. Thank you very much.